FPL Game Week 28 transfer targets. We have a very quick turnaround this week with the next deadline on Friday and then the next after that the following Tuesday. So we've got 2 game weeks in the space of a week, which will be great, but we have to make sure that our teams are set up. So in today's video, we're going through the Vert verified watch list, my top 5 for the next 5 across all the positions, including a Game Week 28 wildcard draft. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe. Let's get into it. What's up, it's FPL Vert, where arrows go green, and as you can see they did go green. I'm having to record this video to go out on Tuesday morning, so we haven't actually got the official Premier League ranking which I usually use, but I'm just using the one from live FPL, but it is a green arrow. So we'll discuss that a bit more in my team selection video. I've had to take a hit already to make sure I got my players in, because I've got nothing in the bank now, so I'm glad I actually did take the hit. But going into my team, going into the verified watch list, into the goalkeepers, and officially, like if you ask me which goalkeeper is going to keep the most clean sheets from now until the end of the season, I would be saying it's David Raya, but I guess for budget constraints we'd have to look elsewhere. So if you've got wildcard active right now, probably looking at Kelleher, just because you want to be a bit more flexible, which is another reason why you should wait for game week 32 to wildcard, in my opinion. Of course, the wildcard draft that I will provide in this video is more just as a guide, just to look at the players we should be looking at. But yeah, I don't think we should be looking at anyone to wildcard it right now. Martinez would be third, but I just don't think you should be paying 5.1 million for him if you can get Raya, basically. But yeah, goalkeepers are never too much to talk about, really. Into the defenders, and there's 2 at the top really, because they both hold in game week 27, but I do think long term it has to be Virgil van Dijk, mainly because he plays in game week 31 more than anything, and that's the conundrum with O'Reilly, which we'll discuss very shortly. But yeah, I think Van Dijk, he's had 17 points in game week 26, 11 points in game week 27. He's got West Ham, Wolves and Fulham all in his next 5, and he plays in 31, so I would say he's the number 1 priority defender if you don't own him already. I do. I had to bring him in before he rose to 6 million, which we'll discuss in my team selection video. And then there's O'Reilly, which is a bit of a pickle at the moment, because he is, as we say in FPL, gold dust at the moment, because he's playing out of position. So he's classified as a defender, but he is really playing as a midfielder. More specifically, he's playing like the left 8 position, where he scored twice from. In fact, he's actually got 3 goals in his last 2 league games. So the question is, do you bring him in mainly for the next 3 fixtures and then just either hide him on your bench or take a -4 to get rid of him, or do you just ignore him? And for me, it's not going to work for my team because I don't have that many transfers, and I've already had to use some to get some players in. One of them is Virgil van Dijk, another is someone that we'll discuss later in this video. But if you've got maybe like 2 or 3 free transfers and maybe you can afford to deal with him in game week 31, I probably would be looking at him, mainly because Forest at home, you expect City to get the job done. West Ham away might be a bit tricky, and Leeds away, I mean, me personally, with my unbiased Arsenal hat on, I do think City do drop points at Leeds, but they do definitely beat Forest at home. West Ham away could be tricky as well, but we'll see. And then Chelsea away, I mean, that's straight after the international break. That's pretty difficult if you ask me, but that's not my problem. And then there's James Hill. I mean, obviously anyone from the Bournemouth defense is pretty good, but I think just because of a pure budget perspective, at 4 million, he might rise to 4.1 million, which is why he's got an asterisk on him. Because as I mentioned, I'm having to get this. I'm recording this to be put out at Tuesday 6 a.m. But obviously I'm recording it before then, so I won't know what the his transfer cost will be by the time that it actually does go out. But it looks like he's going to rise, so there's an asterisk. But even then, I think the DEFCON he's providing, the attacking returns he's providing, the starts, I think 4 million is, you have to pick him, really. There's no real reason to pick him over Senesi. He's actually getting more DEFCON than Senesi at the moment as well. With Anderson, mainly because of West Ham in game week 29, but more importantly, he hosts Burnley in game week 31. So anytime that anyone's got a plum fixture in a blank game week, yeah, you have to look there, really. And then there's Kwanzaa as well. He also plays in game week 31 mainly, so that's why I'm looking at him here. But 4.4 million, can't really go wrong. Into the midfielders, where it's always a bit more fun to discuss, but you know what? Actually, the defenders were actually quite fun to talk about, because obviously 2 of them had hauled recently, and Hill's doing pretty well at the moment as well. And Quan's actually got an assist and Defcon, so actually not looking that bad. But anyway, Bruno, yeah, he's here. He did just blank. I'm recording this Monday night. He did just blank away at Everton, but he does host Crystal Palace this week. And more importantly, not only does he host Crystal Palace, Palace have a crunch tie midweek in the Conference League, which they drew in the first leg. They'll play the second leg at home, but obviously they're going to have to play their first team, and then they're going to have to go to Old Trafford. And I think, that doesn't bode well for Palace given their form at the moment, and also Bruno Fernandes's form in each of his past 4 home games at Old Trafford in the Premier League. He's got double-digit returns in all 4 of them, so he's actually going to be my captain. He's going to be my favourite captain pick this week, especially as Haaland, as I said, is going away to City, which I think is a tough game for Man City, given that Leeds are pretty strong at home, especially in even kickoffs, which we'll discuss later with team selection. But yeah, I think Bruno's the number 1 to be looking at this week. And then it's pretty difficult for the midfielders in terms of rank order. I do think because of how bad Tottenham are, I probably have to put Wilson here. But I mean, Semenyo and Rayan are all great picks. I'm sure you would have seen at least one video of Rayan over the weekend. He almost scored a Puskas nominee. He picked up the ball from inside his own half and pretty much dribbled the whole way and hit the post. So he's very exciting to look at, and I'm very happy to own him before he rose. Obviously, you've got Sunderland and Burnley in his next 3, and Brentford don't really keep clean sheets either. So yeah, quite excited to own him for this little stretch before the wild card. Semenyo is another one, just like O'Reilly. If you can afford to hide him or deal with him in game 31, I'd go there. For my team, it's not going to work out. Yeah, I would be looking there. I do think he's a pretty good pick, given his consistency. And then Vert is here just because Slot does say that he's going to be back in a week. So yeah, he's got a yellow flag, but I think you can't really ignore West Ham, Wolves, and Fulham. Also Tottenham. I keep ignoring the grey fixtures, but yeah, Tottenham at home seems like a pretty good fixture really at this point in time. And it's finally into the forwards, where also, just like the midfielders, is actually a little bit more fun to discuss. More fun than it has been in recent times anyway. And that's obviously at number 1 we have Erling Haaland. I'm pretty sure you know who he is. He's actually returned in 4 straight game weeks now, so I guess you could say he's back to form. Leeds is actually his place of birth, if I'm not mistaken, actually. Yeah, I think he was born in Leeds, so maybe a little bit extra there. I always think that, when he's done with City and maybe where else he goes after, he probably does end up at Leeds for at least a season or 2, just as like a homecoming in one of his twilight years, but that's a long time away anyway. But for now, when he's competing for the Premier League, yeah, he's a great pick. I don't think he's the best captain this week though. Not many strikers have done well at Leeds, if I'm not mistaken. And I also think, given the way Man City looked against a Newcastle team that literally travelled to Azerbaijan and back midweek, given how Man City played in that second half, I'm not too convinced really. And this is, again, totally Arsenal unbiased. But yeah, Forest at home, West Ham away, easiest captains all week. Easiest captains all season really. And then we'll deal with Game Week 31 later. Thiago is probably the next best thing. Well, not even probably, he definitely is. I already got him in before he rose to 7.1 million. I think if you obviously he hasn't been good recently, which is great for me because I haven't owned, but I've now owned again. Burnley, Wolves, Bournemouth don't really keep clean sheets either. I think those are kind of hard to ignore. And more importantly, he plays in Game Week 31. So what more do you want really? Ekitike as well, as I mentioned before, I want to own all 3 of Haaland, Ekitike and Thiago because, yeah, if I was on a wild card, that would be my front 3. I think they're easily the best 3 forward picks. But Raul's here as a bit of a left field shout if you want to go a little bit differential. I might be looking at him for Game Week 30. I'm definitely looking at Wilson for Game Week 31. I may also be looking at Raul for Game Week 31 as well, mainly for that Burnley fixture just before the wild card, like a 1-week punt. So let's see. And then Gyökeres is here just because he scored a brace, and it's hard. It's kind of harsh to ignore someone that does do so. I do think Chelsea is a great matchup for him as well. I don't think their defenders are going to be able to deal with him or cope with him. And the same rings true for Brighton. Oh, in fact, you know what? Brighton's going to have to be a revenge game for him, really, because he was at Brighton. He didn't get a single league game there, and now he's with the league leaders. Funny how life turns out, but yeah, I think he'll definitely want to prove them a point. So yeah, if you wanted to go a little bit differential, I'd be looking at Gyökeres for sure. As long as you can hide him in Game Week 31, that is. So as promised, I have put together a Game Week 28 wildcard draft. And it's pretty similar to the one last week, except there's Hill starting. We've got Vert in this team. And we've also got Thiago we've got Ekitike instead of Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro, yeah, his reign is over. So if you haven't owned him, you can come out of the sofa now, because he's not going to be returning at Arsenal away, and he won't be returning at Aston Villa away either. So yeah, it's been fun, Joao Pedro, but yeah, your time's up. And then the rest of the team's pretty self-explanatory. As I mentioned, Semenyo, I would go there if you can hide him. I mean, this team is set up in a way that you can hide both Haaland, Semenyo and Gabriel on the bench, and then there's no one else that will be blanking. So yeah, I mean, I can make this team with I literally made this team on my app. Obviously I didn't press confirm because that gave me a lot of hits, but yeah, this is what I would go with in terms of the Liverpool triple up given their fixtures, the Bournemouth double up, and then the rest, pretty self-explanatory really. Gabriel's the best defender in the game, Hill's on real budget, Fernandes is the best midfielder right now and my captain pick for this week. Semenyo is just in great form. Ryan looks like he's about to break out as a serious gem. And yeah, as I mentioned, Thiago, Ekitike, Haaland, definitely the best front three money can buy at this point in time. With Wilson and Anderson, waiting in the wings, just in case, Vert does actually miss out. And obviously, Fulham host Burnley in Game Week 31. So that's the thinking behind Fulham. And yeah, and Konza plays in Game Week 31, he hosts West Ham. So that's the thinking, that's the team, that's the Vert verified watch list. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, please drop them into the comments or reach out to me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky or TikTok. So yes, thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the team selection video.